In September of 2011, 42-year-old Yuqing Yin was attacked on her way to the office and ended up dying before the ambulance arrived. Despite the attack happening in the middle of the day, there were no witnesses to her murder and her killer is still on the loose. Why would someone want to kill this young woman, and how did the person manage to get away from the crime scene without getting caught? This is the unsolved case of Yuqing Yin. So hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Elin and on this channel I cover true crime cases that have occurred in the Nordic countries. This case is pretty scary to me because it seems like it could happen to pretty much anyone, and as I said in the intro, it's never been solved. And I really want to bring awareness to it because it happened to a foreigner in Finland, and even if her background might not be relevant at all to the case, I feel like the cases where foreigners are victims of a crime are usually brushed off in the Finnish media, while the cases where a foreigner commits a crime are always all over the news. The truth is that there are a lot of cases where foreigners are victims of a crime, and even hate crimes where they are specifically targeted because of their race or ethnicity. And I want to bring awareness to these as well, but with that being said, now let's jump straight into the case that happened in Finland. Yuqing Yin was a 42-year-old Chinese woman who lived in Finland with her partner and their child. She worked at the Nokia company, which is a company developing the Nokia phones in a pretty big city in Finland. Yuqing first moved from China to south of Finland with her partner in 2006, but they ended up moving north instead, where they lived as a normal and seemingly happy family. Her friend and colleague described her as friendly, kind, and also very hardworking. But apart from work, she was family-oriented and easygoing. She would sometimes tell her friend about her dreams of one day being retired so that she could travel and choose where in the world she would like to live. She also dreamt of having another child with her partner, and she would always encourage her friend to have a child of her own. Yuqing said to her that then on sunny days they could go out with their strollers and have a coffee somewhere. And the sad part about that is that the friend was actually pregnant when the events of this case happened, and it makes me sad that Yuqing never got to experience the happiness of them having small children together. Yuqing and his friend worked together in the same team until the year 2008, but apart from work, they sometimes had lunch together or went swimming. Around the year 2009, Yuqing moved back to China, but ended up moving back to Finland in 2011, shortly before the events of this case. So she had just started working in a new team at work and was settling into her life back in Finland. The 5th of September 2011 started out as a normal workday for Yuqing. She left for lunch at around 11:50 a.m. to her home, which was around 700 meters away from the office when taking a shortcut through the forest. When Yuqing was walking back to the office, she was attacked on a forest trail at around 12:50 p.m., only about 130 meters away from her workplace. After this, people close by heard cries for help in English saying, help me, and she was found on the forest trail that is kind of a shortcut between two streets and basically leads from one street to another. The person who first came to help was a worker at the same workplace who had been outside of their workplace at the time of the attack. He was between their work building and a forest when he suddenly heard a woman screaming for help not too far away. The man could hear that something was truly wrong, so he started walking towards the forest where he found Yuqing laying on the ground. When he got closer, she saw him coming and just told him, help me, and he could see that she had injuries to her body. He has later stated that he was super worried that the attacker was still around, but he tried to calm her down and called the emergency services. The man tried to talk to her and keep her awake as he could see that there was not much time, but she did not really answer anything to him. Around that point, two other men who lived close by also came to the scene after hearing the screams, and one of them was holding a stick, probably ready to defend himself. Despite first aid, Yuqing started slowly fading away and ended up dying from her injuries. In less than 10 minutes, emergency services arrived and tried to help, but it was already too late. There were no witnesses to the crime, even though it happened in the middle of the day in a fairly busy area. And there were also small houses, an office building, and a dog park nearby, but the exact place of the attack is the only point on the forest trail that's not in direct sight. The police received information about the attack at 12:54 p.m. and quickly arrived at the scene. They searched for the perpetrator with several patrols throughout this whole forest area and also questioned the 3 men who were at the crime scene. These men, the one who arrived first at the crime scene and the 2 others, all came from different directions of the trail and none of them had seen anyone. After the murder, the police also conducted field searches for many days looking for the attacker. They used metal detectors, police dogs, and they also got help from the defense forces. And they were at the crime scene super fast, but still did not catch any attacker or even a suspicious person. The police considered it possible that the attacker might have run into a bus and quickly traveled away from the scene. Interrogations were therefore made with the bus drivers who had been nearby when the death occurred, but nothing really came out of this. At the crime scene itself, there were signs of a struggle. It's strongly believed that Eugene had tried to escape from the situation because her shoes were found on different places along the path. An abduction of the body was also done, but no information regarding this has been released to the public. Regarding the manner of the killing, the police has only stated that it was not carried out with a firearm, and according to information from Suomen Kuvalehti, it was a bladed weapon. But for investigative reasons, the police did not confirm the claim, and they have kept most details surrounding the investigation a secret. The reason for the police sometimes doing this is that only the killer and the police knows exactly how the crime was carried out, and therefore no false confessions can be made, and they can be sure that whoever knows more details about these things is probably involved in the crime. They have also not publicly stated if the weapon is in police custody or not, and I'm not gonna speculate any more about this because I'm sure that they have their reasons for keeping these details a secret. The motive is something that investigators have been trying to figure out. The attacker clearly left Eugene after attacking her, but she was still alive and the attacker could not be sure that she would end up dying. It was therefore clear to the investigators that this was not carried out by a professional, and it also did not necessarily have to be a planned murder. The killer also did not rob Eugene or sexually assault her, so there was no clear reason for why she was killed. I do want to mention though that she was a Chinese woman in Finland, so to me it's possible that it was a hate crime. This was also something that the Chinese community in the city were wondering, and it did cross investigators' minds. But it's also possible that it was a completely random attack or a crime of opportunity, and that the victim had not been chosen beforehand. When it comes to Finnish crimes of this sort, the perpetrator is usually someone that the victim knows or someone close to the victim. The police therefore quickly found out where Eugene lived and with who, and this turned out to be not too far away from the crime scene. They soon searched the home, but her partner was not at home, so they started looking for him and the couple's daughter, but he eventually arrived at their home and the police questioned him. According to Eugene's partner, he had been in contact with her only a few hours before her death. He worked in the same building as Eugene, so they had talked about going for lunch together, but he ended up being stuck in a meeting, so she ended up going home for lunch by herself. It has been proven that he did attend this meeting and was stuck in it during the time of the attack, so he was ruled out as a suspect. The sad part about this is that he was only about 100 meters away when his wife was being attacked and killed in the forest. Their daughter had also been in school that day, so she knew nothing about what was going on. The police proceeded to go through Eugene's computers, phones, and also checked surveillance cameras around the area. Since her workplace was close by, they had many cameras around their buildings, and the police noticed that no one had left the forest trail moving that way, so towards these buildings. At the end of the forest trail, there was a dog park and a playground where people were spending time during that day. So the attacker must have left through the forest and either towards the living areas or towards the parks. My own thought is that this must have been someone who knew this forest and possibly lived close by because the person clearly knew how to move and fast. There was reports of people moving in strange ways around the area, and especially one man was suspicious in the police's eyes. A surveillance camera image of this suspect was released on the 13th of September. It was a Finnish-looking man with dark hair, 180 centimeters tall, 80 to 85 kilograms in weight, 25 to 40 years old, who had been moving towards the city center. However, the police did announce 6 days later that the person was not related to her death, as the time of the photo had been wrong and did not match with the time of her death. According to eyewitnesses and observations, there had been another suspicious man who had been running without jogging equipment around the area at around 1 p.m. It's of course not completely sure that this man was related to the case, but he was described as dark-haired with a yellow or tanned face. The man had been running from the forest towards the park, but not on any path, but rather through the grass straight downhill. When the man realized that he was running towards people, he made a sudden, almost 90-degree turn to the left. Sometimes the man also stopped to sneeze, and he overall just seemed distressed. And I will insert a picture of the route this man was seen running, so it should appear on the screen right now. But in the end, any certain identification marks of a perpetrator could not be given because there was no clarity of who the attacker was. So the problem in this case was that nobody had really seen the attack, which made it almost impossible to figure out who the attacker was. They also had no clear motive behind the attack, so the case has never been solved. According to the head of the investigation, Pasi Nieminen, the killer probably came along the forest path, surprised Yuqing from behind, and left the same route. He also stated that what makes her death extraordinary is the time, place, and manner of doing it. According to him, there was no evidence that the act was planned, but the absence of a motive is not impossible either. In August of 2018, Nieminen stated that most likely the victim was chosen by chance as no motive had been found. Since the case does not seem premeditated, the case is being investigated as manslaughter and not murder. The reason for the police believing that it was a random attack was because the location of the attack was really stupid, as it was close to parks and living areas. Yuqing was also a very small and petite woman, which is the perfect victim for a random attack since she would be easier to overpower than a bigger person. According to the Finnish law regarding manslaughter, it expires in 20 years, which means that if the police does not solve it before 2031, the case will be dropped and the killer will walk free. This case strongly affected not only Yuqing's friends and family, but also the whole Chinese community in the city. In the end of October 2011, the Chinese community in the city gave a tip reward of 6,000 euros, which was later increased to 10,000 euros. Unfortunately, this did not really lead to anything, and less than half a year after the crime, the tips had clearly decreased. The police did, however, have several lines of investigation going on about the case and had sent a request for official assistance from China so that the victims' relatives could be questioned. People in China described Yuqing as a well-liked person, so they could not think of any reason why anyone would like to hurt her. In July of 2013, it was reported that no progress had been made in the case even after receiving the help from China. But the investigators are still hopeful that the case might one day be solved and are asking people with any information related to the case to please contact the hotline or the email on the screen right now. But that's all that I have for this case today, and I truly think this case is so tragic because this young, beautiful woman was taken away from her friends and family and received no justice for what happened. I'm remaining hopeful that the case will one day be solved, but I do also think that without any new information or someone stepping forward, the case will probably never be solved. Anyway, I'm gonna wrap up the video here, so thank you so much for watching today and have a great rest of your day. Goodbye everyone.